I had been with Liam for 6 years, but he never mentioned marriage, until that day, when his phone rang while he was shaving, and he asked me to answer it. It was an unsaved number. When I picked it up, a woman's tearful voice came through. "Liam, I miss you so much right now." My face turned cold as I put it on speaker. The woman's pained voice on the other end drove him mad. The woman on the phone was his first love, and also his brother's fiancée. He didn't offer a single word of explanation. He just grabbed his car keys and left. Later, I packed my things and left without a word. I never thought he would search for me so frantically. Night fell, and the city lights came on. I gently pushed him away as he kissed my neck, murmuring in dissatisfaction, "Your stubble is scratching me." He had been on a business trip for half a month and was penned up. For the 3 days he had been home, I had barely left the bed. My body was getting a little worn out. "Just scratching." He smiled and pinched my cheek. "Then you can shave me." I hummed in agreement. Halfway through, his phone rang. He said it was probably one of his friends calling him out for a drink and asked me to answer it. I wiped my hands and went to get the phone. It was an unsaved number. I answered. "Liam, I miss you so much right now." The woman's voice was choked with sobs. Just from the sound, you could tell she was pitiful and wronged. Hearing that familiar voice, my heart pounded. I almost dropped the phone. I put it on speaker with a blank expression and brought it to him. The woman's pained sobs came through intermittently. His shaving stopped. I hung up and watched him turn on the faucet and splash cold water on his face. I couldn't help but ask, "Are you going to see her?" He didn't answer. He didn't even bother to dry his face. He snatched his phone from my hand, grabbed his car keys, and rushed out. I stood there, stunned. I belatedly touched my right shoulder. It was burning. When he had grabbed his phone, he had accidentally pushed me, and my shoulder had hit the doorframe. I knew who the woman on the phone was. Isabella, a woman who had almost become his sister-in-law. She and he had dated in high school. For some reason, she had gone abroad. When she came back, she was his older brother's girlfriend. But before she and his older brother could get married, he had died in a plane crash. I had always known that he had never gotten over her. Every time he came back from a business trip, he would bring back 2 gifts. Every holiday, he would send her a message. I also knew that the little dog she had was named Liam, a birthday present from him. I just didn't know how many times they had met behind my back, what they had done. Around 10, my phone vibrated a few times. My best friend, Chloe, had sent me a series of messages. "OMG, is your Liam cheating on you? He's at a bar with another woman. Wait, the woman he's with is Isabella, that dog." Then came a few pictures. The bar was dim, so the photos were not very clear, but I could still recognize his and her faces. He was holding her, and she seemed to be drunk, her eyes hazy and seductive as she looked at him. "Chloe, what's going on with these two? Do you want to come and catch them in the act?" I replied, "Forget it. I'm too lazy." I took a bottle of wine and sat on the balcony. Later, when I was scrolling through my social media, I saw her post, "Only you are the best to me in the whole world." The picture was of a very blurry back, but after 6 years together, even if it was blurry, how could I not recognize his back? I remembered the year his older brother had died. It was our 2nd year together. After the funeral, he had invited a few of his close friends to dinner to thank them for their help. She and I were both there, and that was the first time she had added me on social media. I had met her a few times after that, but we were never close, and every time we met, he was there too. I waited in the living room all night, but he never came back. Watching the sky gradually lighten, I let out a long breath, got up to wash my face and change, then took out a suitcase and started packing. He and I had gotten together in our junior year of college. I had pursued him. Many girls were after him then, but he had chosen me. When I asked him why, he said it was because I was different from the other girls. When I asked him how I was different, he would just smile and say nothing. Later, we graduated. He went to work for his family's company. At that time, because of his older brother's death, and his father being a good-for-nothing who only cared about women, he had a very difficult time at the company. I had stayed by his side, never leaving. The first deal he had closed after taking over the company, I had gotten for him by drinking until I almost had a stomach hemorrhage. Later, I became his right-hand woman. But the rumors in the company started to grow. Some people started to gossip that he was incompetent, that he had gotten all his projects through my improper means. At first, neither of us cared, but as the rumors grew, he started to hesitate more and more when he spoke to me. I knew then that it was time for me to leave the company. Later, I started my own small studio. I don't know if it was out of guilt or something else, but when I started the studio, he gave me half the money, but I didn't take his money for free. I gave him a share of the profits every quarter. I moved out of his apartment. For 3 whole days, he didn't contact me once, until that Friday, when I was going to meet a client. I happened to run into her and him at the entrance of the clubhouse. I frowned and was about to ignore them when he called out to me, "Ava, something." I turned and saw her, almost possessively, clutching his arm. She said in a small, nervous voice, "Let's go in, Liam." Then she looked at me with a wary expression. "Miss must have something to do. We shouldn't bother her." I nodded and looked at her with a half-smile. "That's right. I have to meet a client in a little while. Unlike you two, who are so free." She bit her lip, her face a little pale. After I said that, I didn't look at them again and walked elegantly into the clubhouse. But the client I was supposed to meet tonight had a family emergency and couldn't make it. I waited in the private room for about half an hour before they called to apologize. I had been trying to get this client for over half a month. They had finally agreed to meet tonight. They had stood me up. It was likely that the deal had already gone to someone else, and they were just rejecting me. I let out a small sigh, downed the wine on the table, and then got up to leave. But when I came out of the private room, in the restroom, I ran into her again. She was reapplying her lipstick in the mirror. When she saw me, a flicker of nervousness and embarrassment crossed her face. "Miss, I heard you started your own studio. That's really impressive." She finished her lipstick, pursed her red lips, and smiled. "Not like me. I'm not good at anything, Isabella." Just as she finished speaking, he came looking for her. He stood outside the women's restroom, his expression complicated as he looked at the two of us. But when he looked at her, his expression unconsciously softened. His gentleness made me a little dazed. In my memory, he had never looked at me with such a gentle expression. Even in bed, he was cold and dominant. After the passion faded, there might be a moment of warmth and flirting, but gentleness, never. "Liam." She walked out and naturally and intimately linked her arm with his. "I was just thinking, a strong woman like Miss, I wonder what kind of boyfriend she'll find in the future." I could hear the meaning in her words. She was deliberately trying to annoy me. I said, "Miss, you're being a little too nosy. But even if I do find a boyfriend in the future, I'll definitely find a single man. Not like some people, who only like to steal from others, and a man who can be stolen by another woman. What good is he?" "Ava." My words had angered him. His face darkened. I rolled my eyes, no longer bothering with the two of them, and turned to leave. But I never thought that I had just gotten back to my rental, and not even 10 minutes later, he would show up. He knew I lived here, so I wasn't surprised. I didn't let him in. I stood inside the door, and he stood outside. "What are you doing here?" "Angry." He raised an eyebrow at me. "Ava, I always thought you were a good bed partner. I never thought you'd have such a temper." "Bed partner?" My face was a mixture of surprise and then anger. We had been together for 6 years, and in the end, that's all I was to him. He reached out to touch my face. I slapped his hand away without a second thought and gave him a resounding slap. "Get out. I'm strong." A few red marks immediately appeared on one side of his face, but he wasn't angry. He just laughed. "So angry? You haven't done too badly with me all these years, have you? That 7-figure sum in your bank account, didn't I have a hand in that?" "Ava, it's just a game between adults. You didn't actually take it seriously, did you?" "A game." I closed my eyes. The anger in my heart gradually turned to disgust. "See, Ava, this is the man you've liked for 6 years. In the end, you were just a disposable bed partner to him. How sad, how worthless, but it's okay. It's better to see him for who he is now." "Yes, just a game," I said, looking at him coldly. "So now, can you get out, mister?" "Why should I?" He was about to get closer. I was about to speak when I caught a glimpse of a figure coming out of the elevator. It was her. "Ava." I never thought this lunatic would suddenly rush over and slap me, and then scream hysterically, "You're shameless, Ava. Liam is my boyfriend now." I slapped her back and, feeling that wasn't enough, kicked him in the stomach. "You two lunatics, get out." I was about to close the door, but she wouldn't let me. Her eyes were red as she glared at me. "Liam has never really loved you, Ava. Do you think you're so great? You know how you got that project with Mr. Chan's company?" I looked at him, and the memory of what had happened then flashed in my mind. A sarcastic smile touched my lips as I looked at him. "So you've always thought I slept with Mr. Chan?" That Mr. Chan had indeed hinted at that. So that day, when he asked me to go to the hotel to sign the contract, I had called his wife beforehand. Everyone in our circle knew that he was terrified of his wife. So that day, even though he was reluctant, he had signed the contract. His face was a little unnatural. The sarcasm on my face grew wider. Since you think I'm so tainted, why have you kept me by your side all these years? I know, I laughed, but my hand, hanging by my side, was clenched tightly. It's probably because you hadn't established yourself in the company yet, and you still needed my help with a lot of things, right? My gaze fell on her. So now that you're secure in your position, you think the white moonlight is better, right? I gave them both the middle finger. You two really are a good match. You think you're so pure. She looked at me with contempt. Just a slut who's been played with. Do you really think he would marry you? He just stood there, watching her insult me, with no intention of stopping her. We're all women, miss. Didn't your mother teach you how to respect people? I grabbed her loose hair and pushed her to the ground. What are you doing? He also pushed me. My back hit the wall hard, and a dull pain spread through me. What are you all doing? Two police officers came up the stairs, looking annoyed. Someone called and said you were disturbing the peace. All of you, come to the station. I hadn't seen my client tonight, and the deal had fallen through. I was already in a bad mood. Who knew that when I got home, I would run into these two lunatics? I had nowhere to vent my anger. Anyway, there were cameras in the hallway. The police looked at the footage, and it was clear what had happened. But they still gave us a lecture, saying that we should handle our private matters properly and not disturb the peace at night. When we came out of the station, he said something to her. She gave me a cold look and reluctantly got into the car first. He walked over to me. His expression was complicated as he looked at me. Did you really not sleep with Mr. Chien? I said I didn't. But you don't believe me, do you? Seeing her craning her neck to look at us from the car, I deliberately took a step closer to him and poked his chest with my finger. You said at my place that our 6 years together were just a game. In that case, I wish you and your former sister-in-law a long and happy life together. I hope you two are locked together for life. With that, I pushed him away and got into a taxi, and he, when he got back in the car, had an indescribably deep and meaningful expression on his face. As he started the car, he suddenly asked her, "Did you really see Ava and Mr. Chien go into a hotel room together?" I took 2 days off and slept like a log. When I woke up, I made some instant noodles and watched a variety show while I ate. But this rare moment of peace was interrupted by a call from my mother. "Ava, are you free to come over for dinner tomorrow? I have some good news to tell you." I didn't ask her what the good news was. I just hummed in agreement. But to my surprise, when I went back the next day, my brother was also there. He was my mother's son from her second marriage, but not long after he was born, my stepfather had abandoned us for another woman. When I was little, my grandparents didn't like me because I was a girl and had even openly tried to find a mistress for my father. My mother had divorced in a fit of anger, but she hadn't expected her second husband to be even more unreliable than my father. She had raised me and him on her own all these years. I knew how hard it had been for her. At the dinner table, my mother kept putting food on my plate, while he just ate in silence. My mother peeled a shrimp for me and suddenly said, "Ava, your brother is getting married at the end of the year." My hand, holding my chopsticks, paused. I had a feeling I knew what she was going to say next. "But the girl's family said he has to buy a house." She put the peeled shrimp in my bowl. "Your brother and I have already looked at a house. It's not expensive, only 3 million. If you think it's good, then buy it," I said. My mother immediately smiled. "I knew you were a good child. Your brother has 100,000. You, as his older sister, can pay for the rest." I took a light breath and put down my chopsticks. "I don't have the money," my mother immediately said. "If you don't have it, you can ask Liam. He has such a big company. What's 3 million to him?" We broke up. He has a new girlfriend now. After a pause, I looked at my brother, who was still looking down. "You do what you can. You're 25 this year. You can't rely on others for the rest of your life." He didn't finish high school and had been idle for a while before I found him a job as a mechanic's apprentice. But he had complained that the salary was too low and had quit after a short time. I had found him 5 or 6 jobs over the past few years, but he had never held one for long. He would always quit after 4 or 5 months and go back to being idle. "You don't have to lecture me." He slammed his chopsticks on the table, got up, and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. "My son." My mother got up to follow him but turned back to complain to me. "Ava, what are you doing? Is it easy for me to raise you two on my own? Can't you be a little more understanding?" Am I not understanding enough? I took a light breath. "But have you ever been understanding of me? You're asking for 3 million to buy a house. Mom, your daughter is not that capable. I'm not a cash machine. Even if I had it, I wouldn't give it to him." I took a bank card from my bag and put it on the table. "There's 200,000 in this card, for my brother's house. This is as much as I can help. He can figure out the rest himself. When I left that house, it was drizzling outside. I walked on the wet pavement with an umbrella, my mind drifting back to when I was 10. Although my mother had always favored him a little, she had never mistreated me. That year, because we didn't have enough money for our tuition, my mother had secretly sold her blood. A neighbor had told me about it. So for all these years, no matter how much she spoiled him, no matter how many ways she tried to get money from me for him, I had never said no. But now, I suddenly felt tired. I didn't want to be a brother supporter for the rest of my life. I also wanted to live my own life. After losing 3 deals in a row, I finally realized that someone was sabotaging me. I asked a friend for help and soon found out that it was her. I don't know what she had offered them, but in the end, those clients had all chosen to work with his company. So I called a former colleague I was on good terms with at his company and found out that he had recently, for some reason, sidelined several of the senior executives, and he had promoted a group of people himself. Although there were some capable people among them, they were all too young and inexperienced to be able to command the respect of the employees under them. My colleague also told me that he had replaced his previous secretary with her. I really don't understand what these two are trying to do. Are they trying to force me to surrender with these tactics? Truly, a madman and a madwoman. I immediately found someone to help me sell the studio. With the money I had saved over the years, I would be set for life. Just as I was thinking about where to retire, his call came. You sold the studio, Ava. I just wanted you to give in. And you just went and sold the studio. On the phone, he was screaming. I held the phone away from my ear and frowned. I sold my studio. What does it have to do with you? At that time, at his company, the president's office was a minefield. Anyone who went in would be in trouble. Even she had been thrown out, until his close friend, Ethan, came. The office was cold and filled with smoke. When he went in, he was standing by the window, smoking. He really hadn't expected her to sell the studio so decisively. That was the business she had built with her own hands. He took a few more drags, then viciously stubbed out the cigarette in the ashtray. There was a rage in his chest with nowhere to go, and it was suffocating. She sold her own studio. Why are you so angry? Ethan looked at him idly. Seeing that he wasn't talking, he frowned. Liam, she was with you for 6 years. What do you mean by this? Did you really break up? Actually, not just him, but several of his close friends didn't like her very much. The reason was simple. She had gone abroad without a word and had then, for some reason, gotten together with his older brother. If his older brother hadn't had an accident, the two of them would have been married by now. For the past few years, she had known he had a girlfriend, but she had still pestered him. He had seen them being intimate, like lovers, at least 10 times. Who does she think she is? He slammed his fist on the desk in frustration. Ethan, do me a favor, buy her studio in your name. I'll pay for it, whatever the price. He sneered. Buy it back for what? You know her personality. Since she's made up her mind, she probably won't have anything to do with you anymore. You know her very well. He suddenly narrowed his eyes. Fine, fine. I'll go and buy it for you. He surrendered, cursing as he left the office. He lit another cigarette. The image of her bright face flashed in his mind, and the tightness in his chest grew even stronger. My mother had called me several times, but I hadn't answered. Later, she had somehow found me and had come to my door. My mother glared at me with red eyes. We won't buy that expensive house for your brother. 1.8 million. You can just pay 1.8 million. Okay, Ava, if he doesn't have a house, your brother won't be able to get married. Finally, my mother raised her chin. If you don't give me the money today, I won't leave. I'll go and shout downstairs that you're an ungrateful, heartless person. I looked at her coolly and took a sip of the warm water on the table. My mother, seeing my look, was a little flustered. She pursed her lips and softened her tone. Ava, I have no choice. Your brother has to get married. I said, I have a duty to support you, but I will not be a brother supporter indefinitely. I went to my room and took out another bank card for her. This card was opened with your information. I've been putting some money in it over the years. As long as you don't gamble or do anything illegal, the money in this card will be enough for you to live on for the rest of your life. My mother happily took the bank card, but before she left, she looked at me suspiciously. Ava, I'm planning to leave this place. Where are you going? I glanced at her. I don't know yet, but I probably won't be back. I randomly chose a city in the south. Since there were no direct flights, I took the high-speed rail, changing trains along the way. Since I was in no hurry, I slowly enjoyed the scenery along the way. I had never felt so relaxed. The tourism industry in this small southern city was still developing, so there weren't many tourists. I hired a guide and, after a few days of exploring, rented a small house in the town, planning to stay for a while. The town was an ancient town, not very crowded, and the pace of life was slow. The house I rented was next to a large field of flowers. From the window, I could see an endless, sparkling lake. Sitting by the window every day and watching the sunset became my favorite thing to do, until about half a month later, I received a video. It was from my best friend, Chloe. The video was taken at his old house. His parents had divorced when he was very young. His father was a dissolute man who only cared about alcohol and women. He and his older brother had been raised by their grandmother. Today was her 80th birthday. She had somehow shown up uninvited, and as his girlfriend, the old lady was furious and had slapped her on the spot. The family had very strict rules, and the old lady had no tolerance for nonsense. She had been engaged to his older brother, and now she was his girlfriend. The old lady would naturally not agree. In the video, after she was slapped, the old lady had berated her, not giving her any face in front of all the guests. At the end of the video, I even heard the old lady ask him why I hadn't come. Chloe sent me a few more messages, basically saying that she had wanted to use the old lad's birthday to force him to acknowledge her as his girlfriend, but she hadn't expected the old lady to be so merciless. I replied with a few casual messages. That night, I received a call from an unknown number. Before I left that city, I had already blocked all of his contact information. At that moment, looking at the unknown number on my phone screen, I had a feeling it was him, so I didn't answer. I took a can of beer from the fridge and just sat there, waiting for the call to end. I stayed in the ancient town for 3 months. Just as I was packing to leave for my next destination, he came. I was eating rice noodles at the breakfast shop across the street when I looked up and saw his back. In a suit and tie. After 3 months, it wasn't surprising that he had found me. I slurped down a mouthful of rice noodles. The moment he entered the house across the street, I grabbed my suitcase and went to the counter, asking the owner to take me to the high-speed rail station. A delivery van was parked outside. I gave the owner $200, and she happily helped me put my suitcase in the van. Almost the moment the van started, I saw him come out of the guest house across the street, his face a little pale. The house I had rented, the owner was the guest house owner. His gaze swept over the van. I looked away from the rearview mirror and opened my phone to chat with Chloe. Only then did I know that he and she had broken up. Actually, from the moment he had said the word bed partner that night, I had understood. For all the years he had been with me, I don't know if he had liked me, but to him, I had been very useful. For example, I could help him with his work and warm his bed in his spare time. More importantly, with me in the picture, who would suspect his relationship with her? Even the old lady had been kept in the dark for so many years. A man like that, and I had loved him for 6 years, but now I was glad that I was free. The woman driving the van asked me with a smile where I was going next. Actually, I hadn't decided yet. I would just buy a random high-speed rail ticket, and when I found a suitable place, I would stay for a few months and then continue my journey. He had completely changed. He was more decisive, more silent. He had personally investigated the matter of Ava and Mr. Qian and had found out that on the day of the signing, Ava had secretly called Mr. Qian's wife. So Mr. Qian had not succeeded, but at that time, she had sworn to him that Ava had slept with Mr. Qian and had even shown him a picture of the two of them entering the same hotel room. What had he felt then? Complete betrayal and anger, and helplessness. So during that time, he had given her the silent treatment. Even in bed, he had been rough, always leaving her exhausted before he was satisfied. When did he realize he had really fallen in love with her? He couldn't quite remember. Perhaps he had fallen in love long ago, but he had just been unwilling to face his own feelings. He also gradually understood that his feelings for her were just a lingering attachment from his youth. Perhaps from the moment she became his brother's girlfriend, it was destined that they would never be together. The person he loved was her, but unfortunately, he had realized it too late. In a private room at a clubhouse, he hadn't called anyone else, just Ethan, but halfway through their drinks, she came. Although he had told her they were through, how could she be willing to give up, when she had been with his older brother? It was only because she knew that he would be the one to take over the family business in the future. She would either not marry, or she would marry the best. Who knew he would be so short-lived? But luckily, there was still him as a substitute. She had waited so many years, had been fishing for him for so many years, and now he was saying they were through. Impossible. What are you doing here? Before she could speak, he looked at her coldly. I remember I made it very clear to you. From now on, we go our separate ways. Liam, She was very good at playing the innocent and helpless role. She looked at him with a pitiful expression. Did I do something wrong? No, you did nothing wrong. It's me, he said, then took a large gulp of the wine on the table and closed his eyes. I was blind and lost Ava. She was stunned, her lip almost bleeding from her bite. All right, Liam, you've had too much to drink. Seeing the tense atmosphere, Ethan quickly tried to mediate. He said to her, Isabella, you should go home. We can talk about this in a few days. She looked at him and reluctantly left. He sighed and asked, You've had people looking for so long. Still no news of her. He leaned back on the sofa, wiped his face, his voice filled with an endless bitterness. She's determined to hide this time. Ava is just angry. When she's cooled down, she'll come back. Even if she does come back, what does it have to do with you? He said angrily. Weren't you the one who wronged her first? What are you doing? Acting all decadent. I want to go and find her. He suddenly sat up straight and looked at him. Since I was the one who lost her, I'll be the one to find her. 2 years later, on a street lined with plain trees in a foreign country, 4-year-old Karen was throwing a tantrum, refusing to walk, insisting that I buy him a cake. No, I pinched his chubby cheek. Your father said that if I dare to buy you any more sweets, he'll dock my pay. The little guy looked at me with an expression and asked in a sweet, childish voice, Can't we just do it secretly? Thinking of the little guy's ice-cold father, I hardened my heart. No, let's go home. Karen was whining. I was about to take his hand and continue walking when I suddenly stopped. Liam, I was stunned. I thought I was seeing things, because he looked much thinner, and his face was pale, as if he hadn't had a good rest in a long time. Ava, I finally found you. He rushed over and hugged me tightly, so tightly that I could barely breathe. He was still muttering, I thought I would never see you again. Ava, you're so cruel. Why won't you even give me a chance? Who are you? Don't bully my Ava. Karen hit him with his 2 little chubby hands. Let her go. I pushed him away forcefully. Who is he? His gaze fell on Karen, then on me. Ava, who is he? My son. I glanced at him and was about to leave with Karen, but he, like a madman, grabbed my hand. You have a child with another man. He had shouted that sentence. My ears were ringing, but after shouting, he realized that Karen looked to be at least 4 or 5 years old, and I had only been gone for 2 years. How could I have given birth to such a big child? Of course, Karen was not my son. A year ago, I was traveling abroad and happened to find the lost little Karen. He was a mixed-race child. His father was from my country. As for his mother, she had died in childbirth. At that time, the little guy was terrified and wouldn't let anyone but me hold him. Later, Karen's father pulled some strings, and somehow, I became the little brat's nanny. With $1 million annual salary, the air was good abroad, and the environment was good. The key was that the salary was high, and the work was easy. Anyway, there was nothing for me to miss back home. It was quite nice to stay here and take care of little Karen. Ava, I've been looking for you. He looked at me with red eyes. Will you come back with me? No, I frowned at him. What for? To continue being your bed partner. I'm not that cheap. No, he said anxiously. It was my fault for saying that. It was my fault for hurting you. Ava, this time, we'll get married. I'll marry you. Are you okay? I coughed a few times. I heard Karen blink and say, If you're okay, eat a plum. Ava, come back with me. He pestered me, not letting me and Karen go. I have nothing to do with Isabella anymore. I won't see her again. Ava, please believe me. What are you doing? A black car stopped, and Karen's father, Mr. Daniel, got out and walked toward us. He was 5 years older than me. He was said to have grown up abroad and had taken over the family business in his 20s. He was a ruthless businessman. He was handsome, elegant, cunning, and deep, a completely different type from him. Daddy. Karen immediately ran over and shouted at his dad. Someone is trying to steal your wife. Me, this little brat. Who are you? He looked at Daniel's suit and tie and instinctively wanted to grab my hand, but I avoided him. Miss Ava is my son's teacher, Daniel said in perfect Chinese. He looked at him coolly. Sir, if you continue to pester her, don't blame me for being ruthless. The moment he said that, 4 bodyguards in suits and sunglasses behind him all took a step forward. He suddenly frowned, with the bodyguards blocking him. He could do nothing. In the end, he could only watch as I and the father and son got into the car. He was like a piece of gum, sticking to me whenever I went out, saying the same things over and over again, asking me to go back with him, saying he would marry me, give me a grand wedding. Ava, can you give me another chance? Outside the villa, he blocked me, trying to grab my hand several times. A wave of anger rose in my heart. Is it interesting, Liam? I looked at him coolly. It's been 2 years. Are you still stuck on such a meaningless thing? I was with you for 6 years. If you really wanted to marry me, you would have done it long ago. Not wait until you've hurt me to the core and then come back and beg. He stared at me, his lips moving, but he couldn't say a word. Ava. A hand suddenly rested on my shoulder. Daniel put his arm around me and took a few steps to the side. His gaze swept over him coolly. Do you need me to call the police? Forget it, I said. I'm going to the supermarket. Would you like to come with me, Mr. Daniel? My pleasure, he said, then removed his hand from my shoulder. He angrily tried to follow, but was stopped by a bodyguard who had appeared from nowhere. And in a corner I couldn't see, the 2 bodyguards beat him up. There was a large supermarket nearby. After a few minutes' walk, I turned to thank him. He had a blank expression. You are Karen's teacher. I just don't want Miss Private Affairs to affect your work. TSK. This man. But he was always like this, cold and distant, occasionally unapproachable. I was used to it. In the supermarket, I took a small shopping cart, not noticing his deep gaze on my back. After that day, I never saw him again. I don't know if he went back to the country, but I didn't care. During the day, after Karen went to kindergarten, I started to learn a foreign language at home. In the evening, when the young master came back, I would take care of his food and daily needs. Karen had been abused by a previous nanny, so he was very resistant to his father finding a new one. And I, being a soft-hearted person, couldn't bear to see such a cute little kid cry, so I agreed to stay and take care of him. But the little brat's dad was very conscientious and paid me too much. That night, after I had put Karen to bed, I went downstairs for a glass of water. To my surprise, I saw Daniel sitting in the living room, drinking. He asked if I wanted a glass. The wine in the house was all very expensive. I had heard from the maids that he liked to collect fine wines, and a single bottle could cost millions. I was a little tempted. Then I won't refuse. I poured myself a glass. The liquid was a light red. It tasted of a sweet mixture of flowers and fruits, but after a few seconds, a spicy sensation spread in my mouth. That man who was pestering you. He gently swirled the liquid in his glass and asked in a casual tone, is he your ex-boyfriend? No. After a pause, I said, at most, a former sex buddy. Seeing the rare look of surprise on his face, I couldn't help but say, I was with him for 6 years, and I was with him through his toughest times. And you know what he called me in the end? Seeing that he wasn't talking, I drained my glass and poured another. A bed partner. I laughed, but my eyes started to sting. He's been in love with his older brother's fiancée all along. It's funny, isn't it? A look I couldn't understand crossed his face. This wine had a strong aftertaste. After 2 glasses, my tongue loosened, and I started rambling on and on with him. As for what I said, I can't remember. Later, the only vague memory I have is of him sighing and carrying me up to the 2nd floor. Half a month later, I returned to the country, because my mother had been in a car accident, and my half-brother was nowhere to be found. The hospital couldn't reach him, so they had to go through a lot of trouble to contact me. My mother's accident this time was quite serious. The doctor told me that if she didn't wake up, there was a high probability that she would become a vegetable. I spent my first day back at the hospital, running up and down, and finally figured out the cause of her accident. It turned out that after I had left 2 years ago, my mother had stopped being so indulgent with him. Of the 50,000, she had only given him 10,000 and had saved the rest. Later, he had run away from home and had not been found since. Her daughter was gone, and her son was gone. My mother's mental state had deteriorated day by day. That day, when she was out buying groceries, she was in a daze when she crossed the street and somehow walked into traffic. On my 2nd day back, he appeared at the hospital. He was no longer as clingy as a piece of gum. He seemed to have returned to the shrewd and calm mister. He didn't say much, just stayed with me in the hospital room. At mealtime, before I could even order takeout, his secretary had already brought the food. I saw the food in the insulated container. It was all my old favorites. I sighed and looked at him. You really don't have to do this, Liam. I don't blame you anymore. His eyes lit up for a moment. Then he heard me say, we ended 2 years ago. If you keep this up, you'll be very troubled. Ava. He closed his eyes. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with a bitterness. Is it because of that fake foreigner? You've fallen in love with him, Daniel. Only then did I remember that I had been drinking that night and had rambled on and on with him. Later, he had carried me to my room. He had left for a business trip the next morning. By the time I returned to the country, he still hadn't come back. It has nothing to do with him. I sighed and looked at him seriously. Even without Daniel, There would be no possibility between us. Liam, I don't eat leftovers. He left after that. Before he did, he gave me a deep look and said nothing. I thought I had made myself clear enough. If he had any shame, he wouldn't come and pester me again. I stayed at the hospital with my mother for a few days. She showed no signs of waking up. The doctor told me that the medical treatment abroad would be more advanced. If I could afford it, I could try to transfer her there. I told the doctor I would seriously consider it. I stayed with my mother at the hospital during the day and stayed at a hotel nearby at night. That evening, when I was returning to the hotel from the hospital, I saw him holding a large bouquet of red roses. Many people were looking our way, probably because the bouquet was so big. Ava, he strode toward me. He was about to kneel down, and the people around us had all stopped to watch. Suddenly, Mommy, a small, chubby figure rushed at me at the speed of light and hugged my leg. Mommy, Mommy. I looked down and met Karen's sweet, fawning little face. The little guy was even winking at me. Then I looked up. Daniel was a few meters away, walking toward us gracefully, and he, holding a large bouquet of roses, was frozen on the spot, not knowing whether to kneel or not. At that moment, Karen even shouted, "Uncle, are you trying to propose to my mommy?" I felt like he was about to shatter. Daniel also walked over and casually put his arm around my shoulder. I was practically dragged into the hotel by the father and son. Ava, from behind came his unwilling voice. "Are you really never going to forgive me?" I didn't turn back. I just quickened my pace. This was my answer to him. Between us, it had been completely over on that night when she had called him drunk. My mother later woke up. I stayed in the country to take care of her for 3 months. Karen also stayed. His father, I don't know how much money he used, but he temporarily transferred the little guy to a kindergarten near my mother's house. This man, I always felt he was a little complicated. A 35-year-old man. He did everything with an air of certainty. I had a feeling he had a bit of a crush on me, but he had never said anything, so I just pretended not to know. At this stage of my life, a relationship was something I could take or leave. My mother, on the other hand, had asked me several times what my relationship was with him. I had always been vague and had brushed it off. At the end of the year, I was about to send Karen back to his father for the new year when he came. He arrived in the middle of the night and called me. To avoid waking my mother and Karen, I tiptoed to the door, but the moment I opened it, I was pulled into a slightly cold embrace. He held me for a few seconds before slowly letting go. "Happy birthday." He took a box from his pocket. I belatedly realized that it was past midnight, and today was indeed my birthday. Ava, if the first person to wish you a happy birthday also confesses to you, what are the chances of success? I was a little amused. 1%, maybe. The other 99% depends on your performance. That 6-year relationship with him was completely over. After 2 years of settling, I thought I was finally brave enough to start a new relationship. Even if it didn't work out, it didn't matter, because I still had money. A relationship was just a way to pass the time when I was bored, so I could date, but I wouldn't give my whole heart again. At most, 50%. Okay. He smiled and walked into the living room with me, his expression pleased. "I will perform well."